The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Ragusa. I'm the editor for Security Systems News, and welcome to Leadership Talks. It's our weekly webcast series. I'm excited to have today's guest, Will Wise. He's the Group VP, Security Portfolio for Reed Exhibitions. Hey, Will, how are you today?
I'm great, Paul. Thanks for having me join today.
Yeah, and so we were discussing before the call, this is a really exciting time in the industry, and I'm really excited about the upcoming Cyber Secured Forum event. I know that's June 4th through the 6th, and it's in Colorado. So can we start just talking about, how this initiative came about, the genesis for it, and how this fits into the overall context of your events, the ISC security events?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I mean, one of the things for me is heading up our security events portfolio here at Reed. Of course, our ISC events are really well known. I'm always interested in sort of what the genesis of ideas are. And I think we have, when you come up with new initiatives, just like you all do with content direction and media, sort of seeing how things developed is really interesting. So be glad to touch on, what the genesis of Cyber Secured Forum was. It actually kind of first sparked up immediately at and after ISC West 2017. We started having a lot more cyber physical content at ISC West in 2017. And the takeaways were really, really positive from that. A lot of the top attended sessions going back to ISC West 2017 were on this whole question of cyber physical integration, the challenges of cybersecurity and attacks on physical security assets. And one of the takeaways at that show was a comment from Matthew Rosenquist from Intel, who is quite well known as a cyber evangelist. He works in their AI group at Intel. But coming out of ISC West 2017, Matthew wrote a blog and had some quotes. And what he said coming out of that show was, and I'm quoting, ISC West is the first conference to embrace the cyber and physical convergence and continues to be a leader. So that was a real clue for us that there was a heavy content demand for how to figure out this convergence of cyber and physical security. Fast forward a little bit to fall of 2017, had a meeting with SIA, who we, of course, is our top sponsor for the event and does our content programming. Had a meeting along with SIA and PSA Network. Just were catching up over lunch, and we all were comparing notes about all the initiatives we were respectively doing on the area of cyber. SIA and PSA both have cyber committees in their organizations. We were reflecting on it, and we said, well, we really could use in addition to everything we're doing year round, including at ISC events, SIA events, et cetera, PSA trainings, a dedicated conference in a management-like summit format really could be valuable to the industry. So as we got to ISC East, November 2017, we saw continued validation on the connected security content and the urgency for this from both the integrators, manufacturers, and the end users. So we really started, in earnest, crafted the plan to launch it, and that's how it all developed. So there was a lot of market validation on demand in the industry. We also felt, a format outside of the big trade show environment was going to be very conducive to further the conversation. So Cyber Secured Forum is really a management level summit type setup. There's not a big expo floor. The number of sponsors is purposely, contained to a manageable number. It's very much on education and peer-to-peer conversation. So pretty interesting development for it, but we're excited about it, to really what we think is a critical topic that our market has to embrace right now.
Yeah, I think that's really smart of you and the others like SIA and others that are involved in this to put this into one show where, the entire industry can kind of come together and tackle all the different issues and topics there. So that's great that you're doing this. And while we're on this topic, can you talk a little bit about the event, specifics of the event, what makes this different from some of the other cybersecurity events that you're seeing? What are some, what's the key differentiator, would you say, in terms of the content attendees will hear?
Yeah, I think it's important to not just group everything under the so-called headline of cyber or information security or even IoT into one bucket, because there are so many nuances to it. I mean, I personally live out here in the San Francisco area, Silicon Valley, and there's of course a lot of content, a lot of conferences on cybersecurity, but a lot of the traditional conferences and trainings on cybersecurity in the wider market have been more focused in the silo of securing computer systems, networks, and devices, all really, really critical, for obvious reasons. But there hasn't been as much that bridges the gap of cybersecurity and now all of these physical security assets that are very, very important for companies' security, public safety, and all of that. So that the connection points is really what we're doing here. We're talking about where cyber and physical security meet and what are the nuances of that, because that's not an easy task from a technology standpoint. And then also, very importantly, and this is why we're getting senior level people together, there's a big, still many challenges to go ahead about getting the right cross-functional teams talking to each other across these groups, be it the executive level, IT, physical and operations, the integrator, and then how does the manufacturer come in? So we're really bridging the gap across the cyber physical realm, which is, makes it unique. The other aspect is the goal here is to bring together the view of the manufacturers, who really are being challenged with building into their product design, secure systems, cyber hardening. The integrators are playing a really important role. And then ultimately the enterprise and government end users, of course, that's where the rubber meets the road. So the idea is to bring those three groups together for the conversation, which is unique compared to just your traditional cyber event out in the market. The other thing I'd comment on, and then we could talk more about some of the content themes, is a lot of events out there from our perspective on cyber just talk about the fear factor, all the threats, but it's more difficult to get into what are some action plans, what are some frameworks that you can do as an organization to take the right next step. So we're really going to be pushing all of the speakers in the conversation to be talking about actionable activities.
Yeah, that's a great point there you made at the end, and I see that same kind of approach happening, so far, in the way that history's kind of addressed this. So that's great that you're getting more granular and getting into some great best practices and what people should be doing. That's good. All right. So did you want to comment any more on some of the educational themes, or maybe the type of attendee you're going to be getting?
Yeah, I think I touched on what the attendee mix will look like. It'll be a nice mix of manufacturers, integrators, and then some senior level government and enterprise end users. So it's going to be a nice mix. I did want to touch on some of the core content themes, and from that reflect on some of the really great speakers we have lined up. So in general, the top key themes on the content are, first of all, really understanding the risks and the liabilities when it comes to cybersecurity and physical. Integrators, as we know, there is a lot of liability involved here when you're going in to implement and recommend a system. So that is very important. Also, it's not just a threat, but there is an opportunity for integrators to really think about building cyber in as a services business model. And they're going to, the traditional physical integrators are rapidly trying to ramp up their talent and expertise on the cyber side. So that's an opportunity to actually turn it into a revenue model and services business model. So we're touching on that. And then very importantly, and I'll touch on this in one of the content sessions I think is going to be most popular, is establishing all the control standards across IT and physical systems. There's a lot of frameworks that need to be developed. And then lastly, clear guidance on threat responses. How do you respond to a threat? Strategies, resources. And we're seeing that even with the integrators, they're obviously keenly wanting to make sure their customers are protected, but integrators themselves can be a direct target, for hackers. And I think everybody needs to realize nobody is safe, so to speak, and you don't just have to be a Fortune 500 bank. So that's important. A couple of the sessions bridging off of what I just said that I think will be very interesting. One is called Harnessing Cyber Physical Security Technologies. And to just give an idea, we've got an outstanding panel on that. First of all, Ray Kalum from Security Specifiers is going to be on that and moderating it. And then we've got senior level people from IBM, Jeff Kroom, who actually was a keynoter at ISC West, Donald Keating from Microsoft, and then Matthew Rosenquist, who I mentioned before, from Intel. So that's going to be an outstanding panel with those speakers.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
Yeah, that's going to be outstanding. Another one I wanted to highlight that we're really pleased with in terms of coming together and being present at Cybersecurity Forum is a session called An Introduction to the NIST Cyber Physical Framework. So this is that's just getting rolled out literally this month. The NIST Cyber Physical Systems Framework is scheduled for release in May. So this is going to be really critical for everybody in the security market to get their heads around. And it's all about cyber physical worlds and connecting those dots. So we're really excited to have two of the senior experts from NIST on a panel. And then joined by them will be a senior professor who specializes in decision systems and sciences from St. Joseph's University. And then rounding out that panel is going to be Scott Tousley from the Department of Homeland Security. So that's going to be really, really important, not just at this event, but we're going to make sure we're covering that on a regular basis throughout the year. And I'm sure you all will be keenly looking at that to carry forward that education as well.
Yeah, that's another excellent session. That's a great one.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Well, the last one I'll touch on, everybody talks about Internet of Things, but like I mentioned before, really defining what does that mean for individual verticals and organizations. We're really happy to have a senior cybersecurity advisor from UL, Underwriters Laboratories, heading up a IoT cybersecurity session, which is all about how to actually validate the security of connected products, which when you get to the manufacturing side and then the decision makers who are buying products is really, really critical. So another example of the flavor for the content.
I love it. Love it. And you brought up an interesting concept. I wanted to ask you if you could comment a little further on this. The implications for the cyber physical integrations, for the ecosystem of integrators, manufacturers, and end users. Can you talk a little bit about your view on the implications for this whole cyber physical integration that's going on? Yeah,
the view that I'm seeing from taking a pulse in the industry and then all the audience communities that we have access to, that PSA Network has access to, and SIA, everybody's racing to catch up, and it's difficult. It's easy to have a marketing message or to have a roadmap, or for an enterprise or government to say they're embracing systems, but there's a lot of details involved. And there are some interesting, unique aspects depending on which part of the ecosystem you're in. So we touched on it before, but from the integrator side, who drive so much business and with the complexity of these systems are so important, there is a lot they have to think about for that liability factor, and that is critical. We're also, view that the integrator and PSA Network does an outstanding job of this. It's focusing on the business opportunity they have, to be leaders in the market. Don't just be reactive. Build up your talent and expertise when it comes to cyber and cyber physical, embracing that heavily, and that is a really good opportunity. The manufacturer side, I think we're seeing some incredible innovation from the security product manufacturers across the board, from the physical security, public safety products, all the way over to the cybersecurity companies who are pretty quickly understanding the opportunity with IoT and convergence as well. But I think where everybody's focused on with the manufacturers is not just how to continue growing their business revenue, but have to have a huge focus upfront on the product design and R&D now with implications for cybersecurity. We're seeing it, pretty prevalently. And what's exciting about new functionality like AI and IoT and all the connectivity, those will reap major benefits for customers and result, but it's putting even more pressure on the front end of product design. So we're hoping that stimulates the right conversation for that as well. And then on the enterprise and government side, I think there's some uniqueness between if you're, say, a Fortune 500 bank or a small, medium business or government entity, but ultimately they're going through similar thing of, do they have the right talent? Do they have the right cross-functional communication structure set up so departments are not dealing in a silo? Do they have the short-term goals? Do they have the right process for innovation? These are all things that we want to have as part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It sounds like you really have your hand on the pulse of what's going on in the industry. So kudos. Now, let's take a look at the second half of 2018 because obviously ISC East is coming up in New York, and there's some exciting new happenings there. Can we talk a little bit about ISC East?
Yeah, definitely. So ISC East last year was a really strong show. We were really pleased with the strong ratings we got from attendees and exhibitors and the industry coverage. It definitely grew significantly. So we're expecting an even bigger event this year, November 14th, 15th, once again at Javits Center. What's exciting is the ISC East part of it is definitely expected to grow anywhere from 10 to 20% on all metrics from exhibitors and attendees. But we're also upscaling the entire New York event, notably with 2 co-located events that will be side by side, literally adjacent and accessible right from the ISC East show floor. One is our launch in New York for the Unmanned Security and Safety Expo, which will have its own content sessions, its own dedicated area, its own entrance to the hall. That's all about the use of drones for security and safety, as well as ground robots, unmanned, the UGVs. It's also going to kind of shine even more of a light on what's going on with policy and regulations. We're going to bring the DC flavor, what's going on in DC up to New York, and that entire Eastern Seaboard relative to drones and unmanned. So that's going to be key, especially in that New York market. Just think of all the stadiums and high profile, risks that are going on with the airspace there, just even in New York alone. So that's going to be exciting. Then also, and I think, Paul, we shared this with you on site at ISC West, we also are really happy to have our info security team here at Reed Exhibitions. They're going to be running their Info Security North America event, also right there side by side to ISC East. They run the biggest cybersecurity, info security event in Europe. In fact, it's coming up in about a week. So their North American version will be co-located with us at Javits. So the whole New York show is going to be up to a whole new, an extra level of energy and attendance and excitement. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the ISC East this year. So I'm looking forward to going, and smart to co-locate the Unmanned Expo, which I think is smart there, and then the info security is also a great idea with the whole cyber element coming in there. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, and how about info security? Yeah, info security too. I will say as well. Info security is well known for their database for Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 enterprises. So they'll bring, I think, a nice representation from those large enterprises. And our goal is to have teams of security professionals coming across the disciplines at the show. So that should work out really well.
Okay, and we have a minute or two left. Is any other key initiatives that ISC is working on and supporting?
Yeah, the other things that we're really closely supporting and collaborating on, and reflects our relationship with Security Industry Association, where we're doing things throughout the year together in terms of education and content and supporting the market. So, for example, we're looking forward to our ISC team being at the SIA Gov Summit, Government Summit coming up at the end of June. That will kind of continue the whole cybersecurity conversation will certainly be relevant there. So the idea is to continue it throughout the year. So SIA Gov Summit coming up end of June. And then, as you know, SIA also runs their Securing New Ground executive level summit in New York end of October. We'll be closely involved supporting that as well, which is timely, just 3 weeks before we do the bigger ISC East event. So a lot of good things going on for the rest of the year. We're also continuing to expand into the sectors just within ISC, a lot of success with the connected security, connected home area, and all of that. So we're looking forward to doing all that this year. And again, really appreciate the partnership with you all and your support on the events.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We love supporting ISC and all the Reed events, and I'm glad you brought up Securing New Ground. I almost forgot to bring that up, so it's another great event. All right. Well, that 20 minutes went by very fast. Thank you, Will. It was great speaking with you again, and look forward to going to all the great events you have planned for this year. And everyone, stay tuned for next week. Look forward to doing it again next week. Thanks, Will.
Thank you so much, Paul.